In fact, this particular group that I was involved with, which had these as sponsors, one of the things they mentioned, I don't think they even understood the depth of what they said, but it was words that shot through my entire bones. Till this day, they still resonate. That the paradigm example of freedom from bondage, because addiction is bondage, is the story of the early Israelites.
The BT View Podcast.
Shalom, boys, and welcome once again to the BT View, dedicated to bring the fascinating sincerity of Bali Tshuva and their mentors to light, in order to give chizuk and strength to the entire extended community. Today, we have a story that's truly fascinating. A story of a Baal Tshuva who was always proud about his Judaism. He was a seeker, sought spirituality, but unfortunately came to a dark place already at an early age in his life. But from that place, he began to grow in his connection to Hashem until today, where he's actually founded and runs an organization to give over Jewish understanding to English speakers worldwide. Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Aaron Dovid Poston.
Good to see you, Rabbi Nochem. It's great to be here.
Shalom, Rabbi Aaron Dovid.
Alechem Shalom, brother.
I would generally say this is a special opportunity for me to speak to you. But today, this is almost like full circle.
It's true.
Because you were the story of the first Baal Tshuva that I ever heard.
Some close to 38 years ago.
Wow.
You were very special. You're a big part of our life.
Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. So just to share with the listeners my personal story, I mean, we got married in Belz, and that's about all I knew of Yerushalayim. And 2.5 years after we got married, we made our first trip Shabbos to the Old City. And we were hosted, we ate the meals by very choshev Baal Tshuva at that time in the Old City, whoever remembers, Rabbi Pinchas
Freiberg,
Zechron Nevrocha. And it came to the meal after davening, and I came in, I saw that some of the guests were like these really yeshivish bachrim, with black hats, and I think it was winter raincoats. And then I remember even Bashkacha, the electricity went out that night.
That's right.
And then a few minutes later it went back on, and these two bachrim are arguing, can you get enjoyment for the electricity? Can you get Hana on Shabbos? I was sure that they were like at the top of yeshiva's world.
That's so funny.
And then it came to the actual meal, and Reb Pinchas says, well, our customers, we go around the table and everyone tells their story. So, I wasn't used to this. I'm not going to tell my story. So I said, okay, we got married in Belz. We had a small family, and we live in Belz. That's it. And it came at the end of the table to both of you. And you started to tell your story. And I was, for lack of a better word, or maybe this is the word, blown away.
Shocked.
Yeah. By the age of 16, you were already finished with the Rehab.
That's correct.
And then afterwards, seeking different spiritualities in the world. Doing anti-missionary work in Florida. Entering the yeshiva of Rabbi Yochanan's wife, should be well, in North Miami. Until you actually came to Aish. I was like, wow, you opened up a new world for me. And then we remained in touch. You brought more bachrim from Aish. And from that developed our whole connection to the Baal Tshuva world.
That's right.
And now we sit here over 35 years later, and I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for being that shliach, for opening up that world for me.
I want to thank you for opening up a whole new world for me as well.
Baruch Hashem.
An exciting world of Yiddishkeit.
Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. I from that moment, I just so tremendously appreciate the sincerity of what it means about tshuva, a neshama who's somewhere wandering, lost in the world, and searching for that spirituality that his neshama knows exists, but he doesn't know where it is.
That's it.
And he's willing to give up everything for it. Wow. I don't see anything else that's comparable.
I appreciate your interviews. I watch your podcast. I see some of the famous people, famous Bali Tshuva that I know that had a very important role in my life, and I think that you're doing a great job getting the word out there.
So that's really the goal, to be able that people, others should be able to appreciate the sincerity and the journeys of the Baalei Tshuva.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's get to your story. Who were the last known frum grandparents in your family, and with what was your association with Judaism growing up?
Right. Look, as far as we know, we're probably the fourth generation American, and have one grandparent that was born in Europe, but the rest were born in Philadelphia.
Wow, that's amazing. Fourth generation American. So we see that, again, I always like to point out how Hashem doesn't forget those neshamas. What was your affiliation? What did you know about Judaism while growing up?
So we thought I thought I was very religious because we drove a far distance to a Reform synagogue. It was like a half-hour drive. It wasn't the synagogue on the corner.
You put yourselves out on Shabbos to be connected.
And my parents told me that it was a step up for them. That's how far they were.
Wow.
They felt more connected by joining a synagogue, even though it was Reform, because they grew up with absolutely nothing.
Wow, that's amazing. So what did you know? Did you know the holidays? Did you know Hebrew?
I knew 3 words, the typical, Ima, Abba, and Shalom. That was pretty much
those
it.
Are the 3 words.
Maybe it was because I wasn't a good student. I don't know. I really didn't pay attention too much in school. I'm more like, I don't know if I would say street smart, but it wasn't really academic. So it could have been my fault. But I think that they skipped a lot of the core ideas in Judaism. I'll just give you just an example. My bar mitzvah, it should have been in the summertime. I'm born in July, in Av. And the synagogue is closed. They're closed in the summer. And they asked me, what would you like to do? Be bar mitzvah in June or in September? So I wanted to just get it over with, so I picked June.
Wow.
Yeah. That's so I never knew about Tisha B'Av. I didn't even know about the temple.
So, did you feel good about your Judaism?
Yeah, because of perhaps the externals. It wasn't that much of the inner knowledge that I had a pride about until much later.
Wow. So now the question is, how do you feel that your experience at the Rehab actually awoke in you a search for spirituality?
So I think, I'm talking for maybe many ex-addicts. You hit a bottom, right? Just think of the words, rock bottom. The words of David HaMelech, a broken heart, or from the depths I call out. So I think naturally, when someone hits rock bottom, there's only one way, and that's up. I mean, when I say only one way, we were given free choice, but the only real true option is to seek external help. I mean, if someone's locked in a jail, how are they going to get out? They need some family member to send a cake with a little file, right?
Yeah.
You need some external help. So you look to the outside, but I was very much involved with 12 steps, therapy. Some of my, I'm going to say mentors, either the counselors or the teachers in this particular rehab, were Jewish.
Wow.
And they were a little bit far also from Judaism, but they were Jewish, and we hit it off. There was always a debate going on because they had their certain ideas, about religion.
So even over there, you were already seeking what was true.
I was so much seeking what I thought was truth anyway. Was there happened to be a church on the premises, and so they wouldn't let us go to synagogue. But I sought out a relationship, and I went to the Knesset, and I had like an affiliation. I felt at least they were talking about God. So at least to bounce off my ideas to them and hear what they had to say, I was open to it. And that kind of got me going in my search, because I never landed, we call full line and sinker. I never went down that rabbit hole. I thought of their mentors of the different religions as godly or saintly role models, but like the Kuzari, he believed in God, but he didn't know which one was the truth. So he went and he searched, and he asked each of the leaders of different religions. And the truth is, I also did, and I handpicked what I thought were truths of each of these different religions. And I found, when I later found Yiddishkeit, that those very truths that I handpicked, they were all within Judaism, under the umbrella of Judaism.
Wow, that's such a testimony to the neshama. The neshama just knows already intuitively.
Yeah, I think so.
Amazing. So now, from what I understand, when you were still in rehab, there was another younger fellow who was also there, also Jewish, and you knew each other. You had already graduated. You finished the rehab. And from what I understand, they gave you special permission to actually escort him or be a chaperone for him to go to shul. What was it, like once a week to take him to shul on Shabbos?
Just a few occasions.
On a few occasions?
But it was
you already had a special connection with him?
Yeah, so since I didn't have that opportunity, I was forced, let's say. They didn't force me, but I was forced to have only one choice, which was the Knesset, that I thought, as a sober, graduate, responsible person, I could request to bring him to synagogue.
So you actually requested to allow him to go to synagogue?
Yeah. I mean, that's I asked him, of course. The idea that we actually had a relationship, like I was already out and he was still in. And
so you were like the big brother.
We made a pact. Like, we talked about spirituality a lot. And we made this, I'm going to call it informal, but it was as formal as you could be for two kids. That, like two old men sitting on a park bench, what's going to happen in the afterlife? Well, so we were discussing what's going to happen when we get out of here. How are we going to find the truth? And of course, we're probably going to go our own separate ways at some point. But if you find the truth, promise me you'll come back and tell me. And if I find the truth, I'll come back and tell you. That was like, these two old Jewish men sitting on a bench.
That's amazing.
And that's what exactly happened.
So that's the question. What exactly took place afterwards? You got out first. And you did your search. Where did you search for spirituality at first?
So I think at some point together we were going to other places. We were, I don't want to mention them, but other religions.
Eastern religions, Western religions.
That's
sure.
True, both. Yeah, Eastern and Western. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then eventually it was your friend who got to yeshiva first. What was his story? What was his ashkach?
Our grandparents actually knew each other. So on a certain level, it's crazy that whatever I was going through in life, even though I was out of the rehab and I was sober, I wasn't living a kosher lifestyle. And his grandmother was concerned that he might end up like me because I was dating non-Jews and involved with non-Jews.
Wow, that's amazing. So his grandmother was concerned for him to have a connection with you.
Well, she mentioned, she called me bandito. I still don't know what that means. Maybe a little bit of a wild kid. Perhaps that's what it means. And so
she wanted her grandson to do better.
Yeah, so she wanted him to go to Israel to become a little bit more Jewish.
How did she convince him to go?
Free trip to Israel.
Wow.
Like birthright. Free trip to Israel. Who's going to turn that down?
Wow.
So he went on this, I think it was college-age kids at this point, and he went on this free trip to Israel.
Was it a religious trip or a secular trip?
It was, I'm not sure if it was Reform or Conservative, but it was
Jewish
definitely
trip.
not. I mean, he told me they did a lot of things that were nothing to do with real Judaism per se. And
wasn't Orthodox Judaism.
That's correct. And he was at the Western Wall one day, and there was a certain rabbi, a well-known rabbi, and his memory should be blessed, and he went to...
Rabbi Schuster.
Yeah, Rabbi Schuster.
Sure.
And he convinced him to go for a class. Just come to Eshet Torah for a class. He spent a few months in Eshet Torah, then he spent a few months.
Wow.
In Bnei Brak.
Bnei Brak.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he went to Monsey, New York.
So that's what you mean, he really surprised his grandmother.
Oh yeah, he really surprised her.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sure she's very proud of him.
Wow, amazing. So after Monsey, as I understand, he came back to Philadelphia.
It was probably Philadelphia, but I was already living in Florida at the time, so he came down and was living with me in Florida for about a year. And he left a lot of art scroll books around. He never pushed Judaism on me. And in fact, I think at that point in his life, he himself was floundering a little bit. He wasn't really strong in his Yiddishkeit, but we were going to...
Well, he had only studied for probably a number of months.
Correct. But he was still searching, and we were doing a lot of 12-step work. And that's going to be an important part of the story, but basically we were
and from what I understand, you started to do some fighting against missionaries in Florida as well.
Also true, yeah. People zealous for Judaism.
Wow.
And especially people who have had a past with other religions or even Bali Tshuva have a burning flame for those that are lost.
Wow.
Which
Amazing.
is really
Amazing.
a 12-step work, which I'm going to mention.
So now my question is, well, how did you get from what you were doing for a year in Florida together to Rabbi Zweig's yeshiva in North Miami Beach?
So I believe that there was follow-up. He had been in various yeshivas, and it's very important follow-up, especially out in the Kiruv world. Relationships is what it's all about. So I'm not sure who. My suspicion was that it could have been Eish Torah. He hadn't been there very long. It could have been the Bnei Brak yeshiva. It could have been the Muncie yeshiva. But the Rabbi
Someone was calling him to follow up.
Someone was calling, and I was answering the phone. Okay, so if they called and said they're calling, and they want to invite him to something Jewish, I would say he's not interested, and I hung up. And he got the phone call once, and he actually turned around to me and said, "Would you be interested in going to a class?"
Wow.
It was exactly that moment that I was.
Wow.
Perhaps if it was earlier or later, I don't know.
Wow, that's amazing.
But it was exactly the right timing.
Sure, we see a lot of times the hashgacha comes exactly at the right time. That shows us it's the hashgacha. Amazing. The exact moment. So you went to a class at Rabbi Zweig's yeshiva?
It was a Tuesday night, Bala Batim. It was for people who work and they come home at night and they might go to their home and eat dinner and then come to this class. Now, doing 12-step work, we dealt with a lot of... 12-step is to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, to try to help as many people as you can. And so we dealt with a lot of very uncomfortable, smelly, dirty situations.
Wow.
And what do? We sit around and we talk about God. Here, I'm sitting in this room, this brightly lit yeshiva classroom, with adults, clean-cut, white shirts, white in their eyes, clean cut, some wearing ties, after a day of work as a lawyer, a doctor, could be financial advisor, I have no idea, talking about God. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is incredible.
Wow.
This is what I'm looking for.
Wow.
A cleaner environment to discuss godly things. Didn't mean I stopped doing 12-step work, but you cannot remain stagnant in spirituality.
Right.
You have to keep reaching higher and higher. And I didn't find anything that was, above me, so to speak. It was nothing to do with arrogance. It's just there was nobody to look up to. There were no role models. In Alcoholics Anonymous, if someone had X amount of years, it could be 40 years of sobriety, but they still act a certain way, right? I don't want to say, but in terms of their midot, they're cussing and, not loyal to their, you know what I mean? So here you're talking about a whole way of life where there's loyalty.
Wow.
It's a whole, and now the other thing, and I want to mention, we didn't talk earlier about it, but service. One of the first things when I went to this class with Rabbi Zweig, he was talking about Pesach. And one of the ideas that I learned when I was early on in the 12-step program, I had sponsors who were sponsored by the originators of the 12-step program.
Wow.
And they read a lot of Carl Jung, and there was, interesting ideas about, one of the title of the books was Not God. Not God. Why would a book titled Not God be the secret to recovery? So the answer is that you have to come to realize you're not God.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's what they meant.
So when I was open to Rabbi Yochanan Zweig's classes, he introduced me to this whole idea that I really have been talking about God for the last 7, 8 years, and I don't even know God.
Wow.
I told you, I read some art scroll books, and they were fascinating because it answered a lot of the questions about God, about lifestyle, about how to live.
Amazing.
But I didn't have a group of people
to do it with.
So
just to clarify, in the 12 steps, the fact that they discussed God, is that just part of a curative process? They're just using it in order to build their lives? Or is it really to actually learn about God and spirituality?
I believe so. Now, they want to be inviting. They don't want people who are atheists or agnostics or of other
I understand,
religions.
but you're talking about people who had connection with the founders. What was the original idea of 12 steps?
So they carried with them the Bible. That's actually what they carried. Includes the five
So in other
books
words,
of
there is
Moses.
a very strong spiritual component to the 12 steps.
Between 1935, 1934, 1939, they didn't have this big book. It was being written. So they carried the Bible. They were religious people.
Wow.
And they believed in the five books of Moses. There's no question that they did.
So in other words, in what we're really saying is that the 12 steps is really based on discovering spirituality.
Absolutely. When they mention God in the 12 steps, they make sure to say, as we understand Him,
Nowadays they add that, right.
which allows you not to be put into a box. You can think of God any way
necessarily
you
religious,
want.
right.
They don't want to cut anybody out. If it means saving a life, they don't want to turn anybody off by mentioning a particular religion.
But you're saying the originators really meant a connection with some sort of spiritual reality.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, this particular group that I was involved with, which had these as sponsors, one of the things they mentioned, I don't think they even understood the depth of what they said. But it was words that shot through my entire bones. Till this day, they still resonate. That the paradigm example of freedom from bondage, because addiction is bondage, is the story of the early Israelites. Now, being a Jew, for some reason, went in
And
one ear out the
these were
other.
non-religious Jews.
Some of them weren't even Jewish at all.
Wow.
They weren't even Jewish
And
at all.
this was what they said.
Yep.
Wow.
Because these 12-step programs is about release, freedom from bondage.
Wow.
Matir Asurim.
The real freedom. Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, so Baruch Hashem, you got to the yeshiva from Rabbi Yochanan's Zweig, Baruch Hashem, North Miami Beach. How did you guys get to Esha Torah Yerushalayim?
So I don't mean to regress a little bit, but so the very first class that I went to was about Pesach.
Yes.
And that was an eye-opener because I mentioned earlier that a lot of the different things that I had picked up over the years was all under Judaism, and a lot of them were mentioned in that class. And it was
Wow.
an epiphany that I decided,
Wow.
this is what I want to do. I want
Wow.
to keep Passover like I knew as a child. At least we sold, we didn't eat, I thought we were a big tzaddikim, that we didn't eat tasty cakes until the third day of Pesach. Like we held off till the third day. How righteous can we be? So I wanted to keep Pesach, and I think this was around Purim time that I started going to the classes, experienced Pesach. Come Shavuos, I decided that's it. I'm going to yeshiva. So I moved into the yeshiva around Shavuos time.
That's Rabbi Zweig's yeshiva, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
A year and a half later,
You learned a lot of basics over there.
I learned a lot of basics. About a year later, we stayed up one night, me and my friend, trying to decide we were both going to go to Eretz Yisrael to learn Torah, and which yeshiva should we go to? And he was
Because you had
thinking,
already fully grown out of Rabbi Zweig's yeshiva, you wanted to move forward.
I don't know if I grew out as yeshiva. I would just say that we discussed the idea that learning Torah in Eretz Yisrael was a much higher level. We want to continue to grow higher.
Don't stop
higher.
growing spiritually.
That's it. So that was like the next level as single guys, young single guys. It was like the right move. And I think a branch of Esha Torah had just opened. So I heard, and I knew about Rav Noach. I heard about Esha Torah, famous at the time, even though this is going back, 40 years ago. And we stayed up the entire night discussing the pros and cons of each yeshiva or different cities. And in the end, I decided, it was like 4:30 in the morning. We're usually like the first people in shul. By 6:30 we're in shul. So by 4:30 in the morning, I decided I'm going to Esha Torah, familiar ground. I know they're into outreach. Again, 12-step work is very important, getting involved and helping people. I think he decided, he was flip-flopping between Or Sameach or Bnei Brak. In the end, I think he ended up in Bnei Brak. And I came to Esha Torah. Now, that morning, 6:30 in the morning, I come into shul. After deliberating, what should I do with the rest of my life? Should I go to Esha Torah? Even though I thought, I'm just going to go there and check it out, and then maybe I'll find other yeshivas, because, I'm open and I'm young. And I walk into the Beit Midrash, and who do I see there? Rav Noach Weinberg. Now, I don't know how often he was there, but it was the first time I saw him in a year and a half.
Wow.
I only saw videos or pictures.
Wow.
You know, there's this idea, you don't walk up to somebody before davening and say Shalom Aleichem.
But he's there live.
I ran up to him. And
Wow.
I had my arms out.
Wow.
And I said, can I come and learn in your yeshiva?
Wow, that's the dream of Noach.
He put his arm around me. He said, sign him up. Sign him up.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so Baruch Hashem, you come together, or you're in Eretz Yisrael, and you both grow. You went on, Baruch Hashem, to marry, to receive Smicha Reish. And years later, you now go on to found an organization to give over Jewish understanding for thousands and thousands of Jewish English speakers across the world.
Right.
Baruch Hashem, I think you told me that YIBONEH now has 18,000 subscribers.
That's right.
And over 3.5 million views already.
Yep.
What was your initial purpose in founding YIBONEH?
So, first of all, in recovery, service is ultimately where you have to put your
Energies.
Your energies. You have to start at the bottom. You have to be of service. And I don't even call it the bottom. It ends up being the top. Right? You think, oh, the guy who's putting me out the coffee and setting up the chairs, what a lowly job. So you know, right? Anonymous means anonymity, which means humility. So this idea of service was very integral to my recovery. And one of the ideas that sprung upon me is the Jewish people are called Mamlechet Kohanim. The word Kohanim, yeah, it could mean priest, it could mean the top, but it also means to serve.
Service.
It's of service. And by the way, so my mother on her side, she's Bas Cohen from both sides.
Oh, wow.
My father, we don't know what he is, but my father's mother is a Bas Levi. So I have this, I think I have this idea of servitude.
Godly service.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, when I was involved with the 12 Steps, I was putting out newsletters. We were recruiting. We were doing a lot of, outreach. That's what 12 Steps about. When I was in Rabbi Yochanan Zweig's yeshiva, they had a famous tape library, cassette tapes. You know what
in those days, sure.
And I had a video camera, and I volunteered, and I was there. I was making videos for his donors and for people who wanted to see it, not just hear it.
Wow.
And when I came to Aish Torah, I made a commitment not to get involved in outreach. I came to Aish Torah to learn seriously, not to get involved in outreach.
Wow.
And one of my jobs was to make sure all the tapes in every classroom was delivered to the tape library for to make copies and to change the batteries, just to make sure that the Torah was flowing. So I went from making videos for Rabbi Zweig to making recordings to making the for Aish Torah famous tape library. I was just a cog in the thing. I mean, it wasn't me editing or reproducing them, replicating them, but I was part of it.
It could be that was their forerunner for their world famous website afterwards.
Could be. I don't know. I mean, they had a lot, and they still do a lot of classes online that are recorded. Now it's digitally recorded, but back in the day it was you had to flip the tape at some point. And so I think it's in my blood, just to be of service. And since I have this little background, I worked for NFL Films, National Football League Films. Yeah.
When?
Before I moved to Florida. It's in Fellowship, New Jersey.
Wow.
A cousin of mine, it was a cameraman. So he worked the 50-yard line, press box.
Wow.
And I worked for them.
You were on the field.
I worked for them in the library, in the tape library, in the editors. I was just basically a gopher. And one of the jobs I had was to watch movies all day, as the film 35 millimeter film came off the processing, that it was in sync, that the color was right, there were no scratches. But I got to go with my cousin on to the stadiums.
Wow. Wow.
So there was also a little bit of my blood.
You had experience already.
A little bit, yeah. And so...
like we would say about Hasidim, you're using your experience and now uplifting them to use for Torah.
Yeah, I'm not afraid to get behind a camera. Wow. To be in front of a camera is a whole other story. So to be behind the camera, to be of service and to share the message, I think it was in my blood already.
So what was the idea of YIBONEH?
Okay, YIBONEH, when I actually was in Rabbi Zweig's yeshiva, there was a particular couple who had an issue with a child who was on drugs, and they wanted my help. And we were discussing with the rabbi, how do I approach this kid who doesn't want help or realize he needs help? And the secret, and this is the secret we carried on to YIBONEH, was every Jew has 3 character traits, right? To be a Rachaman, to be a Baishan, and of course a Gomel Chesed. And so a Gomel Chesed means he's willing to help other people when they're in need. So the idea was, it's not a trick. It's just the way to start a relationship. Ask him for help. Ask him for assistance.
This is what the rabbi suggested to you,
right.
how to make a connection with the kid.
And it worked.
Wow.
We saved the kid's life. So
you didn't make him feel like he was coming to you.
Right.
You came to him.
So when I decided, after I was in yeshiva for 10 years and I was in business for 10 years, I decided I wanted to get back into Kiruv.
Wow.
And so what could I develop that's going to be different than any other Kiruv organization? Because if I'm just the same, why don't I just join theirs? And I think I really wanted to be somewhat independent, to do my own shtick, as they say. So I thought about this idea of asking people for help. Now, what does that mean? There's so many organizations in Israel that help people, and one of my chavrusas in Aish ran one of these organizations, Yad Eliezer. And so I thought about it, that a lot of American Jews who aren't really tied in with the Orthodox or religious community don't realize how much chesed they could do. So we started advertising group tours or group visits to help poor people by boxing food, or with a soup kitchen we help, so you can serve people.
To these help programs, to the Gemilas Chesed programs.
Yes, so we didn't invent the wheel. We just invented, I don't know if to call it inventing even, the opportunities. We created the opportunities. So we advertised.
You would bring them to volunteer on these programs.
As a group. So you wouldn't feel alone. You wouldn't feel maybe either ashamed or scared or hesitant. Here you're talking about 5, 10, 15 like-minded Anglos coming and helping.
And then what was the result of that? What did you see from that?
So we developed relationships.
Wow.
People who either were anti-religious, we helped with, dispel misconceptions, or people who were new Balei Tshuva.
This was all through getting them to give.
Right.
Amazing.
Right.
Amazing. Wow.
Right. We developed relationships, and we had cultural events, we had classes, we had Shabbos, like Shabbos, right for Shabbos. So we did
basically
all that.
You were then giving over Jewish understanding to maybe hundreds or thousands of Americans, English speakers, through the medium of having them give, be part of a giving program.
Right.
Amazing.
Right. And so when we decided on a name, we had to choose a name. So Olam Chesed YIBONEH rang a tune, like this idea of the world's based on Chesed, based or built upon Chesed. So YIBONEH, actually there used to be an organization in Jerusalem, now they're only in Sfat, Livnot Ulihibanot. So they also did a lot of kiruv. There was a lot of people that became stronger in their Yiddishkeit because of them. And I had students that came to me through them.
And that was also the idea of building through giving.
That's right. And they were here in this neighborhood, but they're gone. So I felt like there was a lack. I wanted to follow their example. So it sounds a little bit the same, but it's different. Livnot ulehibanot and YIBONEH.
Wow.
But the idea of building bricks as the logo, that's what their logo was.
Wow.
So they were gone. They were not on the scene in Yerushalayim.
Wow.
And it wouldn't have been a problem. And it goes well with Chesed. And of course we want to build a base of Mikdash. So it all fits in. And Chaim David, who played for our very first event, played the famous song. And that's the
YIBONEH.
26 seconds that everyone gets in the beginning and the end of every video.
Wow, amazing. Wow, amazing. Rabbi Aaron Dovid, thank you so much for sharing today. I mean, Baruch Hashem, I heard the story before, but each time I hear it, it's now from a different place, Baruch Hashem. And it's just, It's a schus to hear from where you're coming from and what you've done with your life, Baruch Hashem. So,
Thank God.
I want to wish you, Hashem should help you, should continue to see a lot of nachas from yourself, from your children, and in your work. You should see a lot of success with all the people who participate in your programs worldwide for years to come.
From strength to strength, and so to you.
Amen, amen. And to all of our listeners, I hope you enjoyed our program today as much as I have. Please realize that it's this sincerity that's just so important for people to see. And that's the goal, to bring it to light, that the extended community could see what Balei Tshuva have given up, where they've come from, how much they sought in order to come to this lifestyle. And you can help us tremendously in helping us continue to bring you these episodes through giving us a like or especially a subscription. Okay, Rabbi Sai, take care. Till next time.
The BT View Podcast.